Hey everyone, welcome back. This is the second video of my ZBLU tutorial series. In the last video, I covered the adjacent cases. If you haven't seen that, there will be a link down in the description. In this video, I'm going to be covering all 24 of the opposite cases, and then in the third video, I'm going to cover the same cases, and that'll wrap up my ZBLU tutorials. And then there will likely be a few months of a break in the series while I finish learning the T and L cases. I went over this in the last video, but I'm just going to cover it again. If you don't know full COLL already, you probably shouldn't be learning ZBLL yet, so just do that first and work on that, practice that for a few months. ZBLLs are a lot easier to recognize if you're familiar with COLL already. So let's just get into the first case. So this is the first case we have here. The only block that we have anywhere is this one, and that's the only way I actually recognize this case. If you get it from this angle, it's pretty easy to see that you just don't have anything. It's just this block. So you hold it with the headlights in front, and if this block matches the center color here, you're not going to have an AUF. And the algorithm I use looks like this. And I sort of start with my right pointer finger on top, but I do the U move at the start with the left hand, and then push back, and then I do the U2 flick, like that. And then this move I do sort of like a pinch, U2, L, and then I do the U prime with the left hand. This case is the mirror of the last one, so recognize it the exact same, and same thing, if the block is here, matching the center, you're not going to have an AUF. And the algorithm for this one's actually a little bit easier, I think, to execute, and it goes like this. I do the F move here with my pointer. Then I do this F move like that with my thumb, sort of like how you do it at the end of a V perm, and then just sort of readjust the hand a little bit, and then insert the pair into the back. This case is pretty easy to recognize because it's just a J perm, like that. You can imagine if these corners were twisted, it would literally just be a J perm. So you can recognize it from pretty much any angle the same way you would a J perm. And if this block here is matching the center, you're not going to have an AUF. You hold it with the headlights on the left. And this alg is actually just an anti-soon, and you cancel into doing this ZBLL, which was in the last video. But instead of doing an R, you do an R3 prime. And that's just a little bit better for the finger tricks. This is the mirror, and it's the exact same. This matches the center, so you're not going to have an AUF. And you execute it by starting with thumb on top, do the anti-soon in the back, and then here, this R3, sort of like this, you have to regrip to finish it. But that one's actually pretty fast, actually a little bit faster than the first one. This is another case that's super easy to recognize because you have this huge block here. You also have this block here. If you get it from this angle, it kind of looks like a Y perm. And if this block is matching the centers, you're not going to have an AUF. And it's pretty easy, also pretty fast, because it's just an A perm with U2s. I'm not going to go over the execution for that because you can probably already sub one in A perm, so. And then of course you have the mirror for that one. This time you hold it with a block in the back. Very easy. For this case, the recognition is kind of hard because it looks a lot like this one. But for this one, basically you don't have any pieces matching anywhere on the cube. And the way I recognize it is the color on top of this corner matches this edge. And same thing on this side. For the next case, it's going to be over here. And if you have a matching edge with the center here in front, you're not going to have an AUF. So the way I execute this, you start the F move with your thumb. That sets you up for the R and the U prime. And then here it's important you switch between a U with a right index and then push with the left index and then right index again and then finish with the thumb. It's very important that you alternate for the U moves like that. So this is the other one where these two colors match and these two colors match. And you actually hold it with the headlights in front. And if this edge is opposite the center, then you won't have an AUF, unlike the last one where if it's the same, you won't have an AUF. And the alg looks like this. Here, this is pretty much the only finger trick that's not like completely straightforward. So you do the F prime with the pointer here, and then insert that pair. This case is fairly easy to recognize because you have a couple blocks here that sort of looks like an end perm. If you hold it with this block solved, you're not going to have an AUF, and the alg looks like this. I do the U with my pinky like that. Again with the pinky. And then here, just regular D moves like you normally would with the ring finger. Pretty straightforward. And then of course, this is its mirror. Same thing, block is solved, you won't have an AUF, headlights on the left, and you just do it from the front this time. Ring finger D moves again. And then I push with my left hand for that last U. So this case kind of looks like the last one, except you only have one block instead of two, and you hold it with the block on the right. And if this is opposite the center, you're not going to have AUF. And I start with the thumb on top, and it's actually just a soon with a cancellation. So U2 with the right hand, push with the left. And then here I push with my ring finger, push back. Pretty straightforward. And then of course we have the mirror, which we execute with the block on the right this time. And we start with the thumb on bottom. D with the ring, push back. Again, pretty straightforward. So for the next 12, these are the cases where these corners are solved relative to each other. And all of these are actually 2 GLL, so they can all be executed pretty fast. And most of them are actually just like pairs of soons and anti-soons, so they're also pretty easy to memorize. For this one, this is super easy to recognize because you've got a huge block here and then these matching pieces as well. You can also see that these two match the corner and the edge. And you just hold it with the block in the back, headlights in front. And if these are opposite, you won't have an AUF, and it's just a soon, and then a U, and anti-soon. This is the mirror case. This time you hold it with the block in front, and you just do back soon, U prime, back anti-soon. This case kind of looks like a T-perm from this angle, but from this side you see that this is not green, it's actually red, so sort of like a hybrid T-perm R-perm kind of thing. And you hold it with this block in the back, so the unsolved, the like mismatching T-perm part in the front. And if this block is opposite the center back here, you won't have an AUF. The algorithm looks like this. You take that pair out, and then you put it back in. I do the U move with my pinky, and then you just do that winner variation. Here we have the mirror case. So we just hold it with the solved block in front this time. Again, opposites, so you have no AUF. And the alg is exactly the same, just you take out the front pair. put it back in, and then this winter variation case in the back. This case kind of looks like the last one, but instead of looking like a T-perm mixed with an R-perm, it looks like an R-perm, except this piece is not red, or sorry, blue. So it's a little bit more R-perm-esque than the last case. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's just how I recognize it. So that works from basically any angle. And the algorithm is just an anti-soon, U prime, soon. And then the mirror case, I forgot to mention on the last one, if this block is opposite the center, so the block that you break up on the first move, if it's opposite of the center, then you won't have an AUF. And so for this case, it's just the same thing, just in the back, anti-soon. And then here I do the U. You can do it also with the middle finger. You're gonna have to sort of re-grip a little bit anyway, so I don't think it really matters. And then back soon. So for these next two cases, I don't really have a good way to recognize it. You can imagine if these corners are twisted, it's just a U-perm. So for this one, they go clockwise, and for the other one, they go counterclockwise. That's the best way I can think of to recognize it, is it just sort of looks like a U-perm. So if you get it from this angle, super easy. If you get it from here, you kind of just have to guess. You could probably recognize it just from looking at these three sides, but it can be a little bit tricky to distinguish from the other one. So for this case, the one where the edges are moving clockwise, you hold it with the solved corners in the back, and if they're a U move away, then you won't have an AUF. So the alg looks like this. And then here I do the U with my pinky. You kind of just have to brute force memorize that one. I kind of memorized it by tracking the movement of these two F2L pairs. This is the opposite case of the last one, so they're moving counterclockwise this time. And again, because the edges are going counterclockwise, if the corners have to move counterclockwise, you don't have an AUF. And this time you just take out this back pair. And then again, I do the U with my pinky. This case is super easy to recognize because it looks like a Z-perm. From this side, doesn't quite look like a Z-perm, but there aren't any other cases that look exactly like this, so usually pretty easy to recognize this one. You solve it with the solved corners in the back, and if they match the center color, then you don't have an AUF, and it's just a soon canceled into back soon. And then of course we have the mirror of that case. So this time we execute it with the solved corners in front. You do back soon first, and then cancel into front soon. So this case is very easy to recognize because it's just an H-perm, and a little bit harder to predict the AUF, but you want the corners to move clockwise to be solved with a U move like that. And you hold it with the headlights in the back. And I start with my thumb on bottom, you do that, do those U primes with the left hand. Here, U2 with the left hand, R2 prime, sexy move like that, R2, U prime, R2 prime. And then for the final case, this one's super easy to recognize because everything is solved. These two corners just need to be flipped. And if this block is a U2 away, you don't have an AUF because you do 3 U2s in this alg, so pretty easy to remember that. And you just start with anti-soon, U2, anti-soon in the back, and there you go. So that's it for this video. If you're learning ZBLL, I hope this helped. Make sure to give it a like. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below. Make sure to subscribe so you know when the third video comes out, the one that's going to finish off the U cases. And as always, keep on solving.